My next guest, I think my next guest should be interviewing me because he's really, I'm kind of nervous. Anyway, now this is my story. It's an event in Hackney tomorrow. So if you've got nothing going on in tomorrow, or if you have, you might decide that you want to do something else. Now, it will bring together the stories of the past to document the legacy of loved ones. Absolutely love this. Families are invited to bring their elders, and that is really important. You know, the one thing when we talk about Windrush, for me, I know that there is a scandal, but there's life beyond the scandal. It's about the stories. Just come back from Jamaica. My aunt, you know, I can see a slight, you know, change with the hearing and everything like that. Didn't realise until she told me she is going to be 90 years young in August. She can tell you the age of all the 14 children in the family. She can tell you when they died. She can tell you when they're born. She can tell stories when car first came to our village in Porus. She can tell you about the railway lines, so many stories. So what I'm saying is families are invited to bring their elders to take part in the legacy writing workshop as part of the Hackney Windrush season. He's here with his mum. His mum is doing what mums do really, really well, and, you know, filming and everything like that. But mum, you need to be really, really proud. The event will be held by, now, 17, it can't be right, to doing all this. 17-year young, I have to say. Hackney author, representing Hackney. I'm a Hackneyite as well, Stamford Hill. Romeo Bremmer, who joins me in the studio. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm lovely, thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed. I can see that you come from good stock. You are polite. I've seen the picture with you and your gran. I can see mum there. I always say to people when they come into the studio, enjoy the interview, don't. So I didn't even need to say that. Even if Mumsy wasn't there, I didn't need to say that. But I want to talk about the event. How and why did you get involved in this event?
So this event came about because I'm an author. Mm-hmm. I'm an awarding author of 9 books.
So it's 9?
Yes.
9 books?
Yes,
or
9
what,
books.
Pamphlets or books?
Books, of course, books, children's books.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get onto that. Yeah, go on, you and your flow.
So it started with me being an author of 9 books. And within my work, I talk a lot about sharing the stories of black role models. However, within my work, I've interviewed family members such as my uncle, my granddad, and even did research on my great-granddad. However, one person that I've always wanted to interview is my grandma, my nan. And whenever I ask her, Dan, can I sit down and interview you? She shrugs me away and says, children must be seen and not heard back in her day. Yeah. And children must not tell business of elders.
Yeah.
So it was really trying to encourage her to share her story, and I know that she's not the only one. There's many other Windrush elders who have the same attitude or view on this this topic of telling stories.
Why, for someone, because I think that certainly at 17 I wasn't interested. At an older age now that, you know, you're losing a lot of people, my grandma, I love the fact that she lived to 100. But why so young are you interested? Is it about your upbringing? Is it about kind of you've always wanted to know where you come from, your history?
Yeah, of course. So within my family, I've never got to meet my great-grandparents, my granddad Bailey and my great-grandma Bailey. However, they're always talked about in the house. So my mum had written a book called Legacy File, where she helps document the life of an elder. And she talks about the story of my granddad, who was a butler in Jamaica. He would bake cakes and bake Christmas dinner. And whenever he died in November, and the Christmas, everyone looked around at each other, we're like, where's the food? Where's the cake? And no one looked in the kitchen and saw the little ingredient that he put in, the little extra, and it would never be the same. So that's a little bit like a metaphor to stories in general.
Yeah.
So when an elder dies, a library burns down, and all the story
got
dies.
That phrase.
Yes.
I love that. Just read it to me again.
When an elder dies, a library burns down, and all the stories that they had with them goes with it if they don't document it. So I felt that telling these stories are vital, and it's important to share it, to see your history and your past and where you're going into the future. For example, doing research on my great granddad, he was a qualified tailor in the London street of tailoring in Jermyn Street, and his dad fought in World War One. And growing up, my mum thought that black people didn't fight in the war, and these are the stories that you'd think would happen.
Yeah.
However, it's not the truth. And as I was talking before, he was a tailor. He was a qualified tailor, but because of racism and because it wasn't the stereotypical job that black people did, he worked on London transport for trains. So that's kind of like looking back in the past and seeing your roots and then taking it on and building on it in the future.
Romeo, you're only 17, but can you remember as a child when you first were curious about family and history?
I would probably say it was around 10, or even before that. But 10 was when I'd written Hey Black Boy, which was my 4th book at the time. It's my most popular book. It's a reflection and celebration of my favourite black role models. And it's when a young black boy looks into a mirror, what positive characteristic and what positive role model is looking back at him. And that was, at the time, I wanted to challenge stereotypes and narratives of black men.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show and highlight to other young children that these are positive black men doing positive things. And that's kind of like where the start of looking into history started from. There was people in the book who ranged from people of modern day, for example, Usain Bolt, who under the characteristic determination. However, we sat down as a family and thought and argued about who should go in. For example, my nan said Bernie Grant because of the integrity that he stood for. And that's kind of where you saw the overlap between the past, inverted commas, and the present now. And over time, I'm studying history for A-level, and now I can see in the past the clear connections between the both and how it aligns. So that's...
Your family are from Jamaica?
Yes, that's correct.
Have you been to Jamaica?
I've been to Jamaica when I was very young. However,
you need to go back.
Course.
You need to go back because I think your mindset, what it will open your eyes to, your curiosity. Do you know what parish you're from or anything like that?
I'm from the Grill on my Westmoreland.
Westmoreland.
Yes. On my dad's side.
Yeah.
And then Coleyville on my mum's side.
Oh, so Coleyville is like Manchester.
Yes, my my uncle, my great uncle.
Yeah.
My great uncle, my great granddad's brother was the mayor of Manchester.
Right, so I'm from Manchester. Family are from Porus, old Porus. So I love that. I just tell me, and I've seen an article, but the relationship I didn't have with my gran, because my gran was always in Jamaica, and I really envied my cousins. They would sleep in the bed with their gran, my gran, or whenever I went home and saw my gran would be, are you married yet? And can you cook? Tell me about gran.
So my grandmother, my mum was a senior deputy head at a secondary school. Yeah. So from a young age, she's always working. So there's a primary school that's literally a stone's throw away from my house, and I didn't go to that primary school. I went to the primary school that was next to my nan's house, so that my mum in the mornings could drop me off to my nan's house, and then she could get me ready and get me dressed, iron all my clothes, and then take me to school in primary school. So from a young age, I've always had a connection. I was premature,
Yeah.
And my mum was very sick when I was young. So my grandma and my granddad on my dad's side literally had me from when I was a baby, or when I was straight out the womb. So it was always a connection that I have with her. I speak to her every morning. She rings me in the morning, 8 o'clock before I leave for school. In the night, I have to make sure that I ring her, otherwise she'll get upset at me.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of connection that we have. And yeah.
What has she taught you?
She's taught me to be honest, to work hard, like most Windrush grandparents or parents, to work hard and show integrity. So always do the right thing when nobody's watching, and that's like the core principles of life, really.
Does she ever tell you off? Because you just seem like a really good child.
Well, my mum kind of says that she's gone soft a little bit. I say that she hasn't gone soft because but does she tell me off? I don't think there's been a need to necessarily.
Yeah.
But she always tells me if I'm straying off. Yeah. If that makes sense. Not necessarily bad, but yeah. What
are some of the stories? So my mum would say to me that, you know, in terms of the stories that she would have, you know, learnt was about, or the stories that my mum told me was about, in those days, unfortunately, you got beaten. And my mum was one of 14 kids, okay? So big families, as it was at the time. And Papa, as they would call, you know, my grandfather or whatever, you go and you get the tamarind branch, because that is what you're going to get the beating with. But apart from that, it was just the things of, you know, like we drink soda, we have fast food. It was like, no, it was sugar and water. It was a thing called, my mum said at school, there's a thing, ask your gran when you go home, I think they call it stinking toe. And it's like it's a fruit, but it was powdery, and that's what you would eat.
Did it smell?
Didn't. I don't know. There must be, but you didn't have like the mangoes and stuff like that. Do you think you could have coped in the generation that your mum or your grandma were coming up in? Because I don't think I could.
I don't think I could, but however, they were happier.
Yes.
It's kind of funny is that you think that life is harder now, but they were happier when they were over there. Yeah. So yes, they were waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and helping out on the farm. Yeah. However, they were doing it with a smile on their face.
Absolutely.
And it was warm. It was hot. Funny that you said, I said that I haven't been to Jamaica when I was very young. Yeah. However, I went to Barbados during COVID. Right. My mom has different health issues. So when the prime minister or the first minister said, "Oh, welcome to Barbados, come to Barbados." Yeah. We were the first ones. We were the first ones on the plane. So we spent 6 months over there. Yeah. And even looking around to them and seeing that they might not have much compared to the UK, but they're so much more happier. Everyone's saying good morning, hello, when you're walking down the streets. Yes. Everyone has a smile on their face, and it's hot. So I don't think I can necessarily cope out there. However, or back then. However, I do kind of envy it. To some degree.
And I like that you said that, because you're sitting on the veranda, you see the children in the morning with their khaki little pants and everything, and they walk past and they say good morning. You get in a taxi and everyone says good morning. It's just a different lifestyle. Tell me about what's going to actually be happening tomorrow.
So within my event, I'll be helping elders to document their lives. So we have questions. So for example, we've broken their life down into different sections. So not necessarily elders, this is aimed at elders. However, because it's broken down into different sections, so for example 0 to 10 and 10 to 20, 20 to 40, and we had keywords, so love, marriage. What was your favorite meal growing up? What was your favorite toy growing up? Where were you born? What was your grandparents' names, your great grandparents' names? So kind of trying to not necessarily get large paragraphs out of people, however try to stem and build the foundations onto what they can build onto, whether it's telling their story on an audio file or on a video, or write it down. So it's necessarily setting out the foundations and the framework to make it more sustainable and encourage these conversations when you leave.
I'm going to get to the books in a moment, but something just sprung to my mind. Can you cook? Did Grandma show you how to soak the peas, do the coconut milk with the rice and peas?
I can cook. I can cook to some degree, not as great as my grandma.
Right.
Nothing beats my grandma or my
sorrel,
nan.
you know
or
what
my granddad.
sorrel is?
Of course I know what sorrel is, of course.
I like that.
But I can't cook to the degree of my granddad, my grandma, and my nan.
But you've got the tradition so that you know that
of course.
you soak your fruits with Uncle Ray and his nephew and you keep it for a while. I know you're 17 and I shouldn't be discussing liquor, but we have traditions. It's like my mum, and she would have got it from her mum. You go out and, you know, it's a warm day like it is today, and then all of a sudden there's a downpour and you get
Saturday
caught
soup.
in the rain. Saturday soup. But before the Saturday soup, you come in, you get Uncle Ray, you rub up your forehead. Do you know what I mean? There was just like traditions. And for in the Caribbean, is church a big thing for like your gran as well?
Of course. My great grandmother, when she came over from Jamaica, she was a Pentecostal minister in NTA Leighton. So church is somewhere that she always was.
Yeah.
And my grandma, she goes to church every Sunday. You can't break the routine out of her. It's like the same with my granddad. Church every Sunday, literally prayer meeting on the Tuesday. And yeah.
Can I say, before we talk about the books, and we've got about a couple of more minutes, like, cherish these times, because it is so important to cherish and to document. So 9 books, we're saying, right? Is that right? 9
Yes.
books in the making. How is this possible?
So from a young age, it started when I was 5 years old, when my mum had a heart attack, and then she had to have quadruple heart bypass surgery.
Wow.
When I was 6. When I was following that, my mum referred me to play therapy when I was staying at my nan's house at the time, because I thought that she might die. Following that, after the 6 weeks period, my sister suggested, "Mum, look what Romeo's had written. Why not put this into a book?" It wasn't to become an author and keep on writing. It was just to share my thoughts and feelings. And this was kind of a family project. So my brother had put in the money to print the books. My sister helped me. My mum went through the admin process of creating a book. And it was something that when this first book was created, I sold 200 copies in the first week. And then I had won my first award in the same year. And then that kind of boosted my confidence so much so that I dedicated myself to writing 1 book each year. And now I'm up to 9 at 17.
I've got to do that. When is the next book?
The next book is soon. I'm looking into creating a book around the legal system. I'm 17 now. I'm studying law, and that's something I want to do in the future.
Right.
Whilst also helping other young children. But I feel like law and the legal profession and the system is such a strong thing within our community. I feel like that needs to be addressed, not necessarily challenged or tackled, but it for sure needs to be addressed in the first instance.
You probably won't have heard it, but I implore you not only to go back and listen to yourself via the BBC Sounds app, but the interview that I did just prior to this. It's a defence barrister, one of the first black in the UK to be called up to the bar, what was called the Queen's Counsel at that time. It's now the King's Counsel. A defence barrister. Your mum needs to write this down. His name is Courtney Griffiths. He died 69 years young from Jamaica, and the tribute that was paid about him, it just shows, where there's a will, there's a way. If you've achieved so much at 17, just briefly, what next is there for you?
So what next is that we have a family-run publishing company called Young Lit Stars.
Okay.
So we have over 30 titles, and over 50 authors. So we have a children's black book fair that we've run. This is the second year that we're hosting it in the Hackney Central Library, and it's helping other young children to become published authors like myself, or necessarily be entrepreneurial. I'm setting up a youth market. We're still in talks with Hackney over that. and trying to encourage enterprise within young people and kicking down those doors to that at a young age.
I could talk to you forever, but we've got to go to the news. Keep doing what you're doing. I need to get you on my Tuesday night show where we've got a bit more time. This Is My Story will be held at Dalston CLR James Library between 12 and 4 tomorrow afternoon. For tickets, go to Eventbrite, and for more on Romeo, you can find him on the socials at Romeo Bremmer. Romeo, can I just say thank you so much. You are not my son, but I'm proud of you.
On the BBC Sounds app, on your smart speaker,
play BBC Radio London,
and on your radio.
The sound of London. BBC Radio London.